Ukraine and the US was supercharged by that confrontation between President Trump and President Zelensky on Friday. Let's just remind ourselves of those extraordinary few minutes in the White House.
Right now, not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't have. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's back to you, far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once this entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you? You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country's in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No, you've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of
we
coming
are
out okay because of
Mr.
us.
President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
You haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet,
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this cabinet.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military equipment, and your men are brave, but they had to use our military.
What about
If you didn't have our military equipment,
if
you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days, this is something
maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this. I tell you.
Just say thank you.
I said a lot of
except
times
except that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
I understand, sir.
I think it's very important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the cards. You're buried there. Your people are dying. You're running low on soldiers. Listen, you're running low on soldiers. It would be a damn good thing. And then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I want this. Look. If you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war. But
you're saying you don't want a ceasefire?
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
With guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't with me. That wasn't with me. That was with a guy named Biden, who was not a smart person. That was with Obama.
It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelins.
Yes.
I gave you the javelins to take out all those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. In fact, the statement is, Obama gave sheets and Trump gave javelins. You got to be more thankful.
Well, in an interview with the BBC, the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says he's told President Zelensky that he must find a way to restore his relationship with Donald Trump. He also said he's reminded the Ukrainian president that he had to respect what Mr. Trump has done so far for Ukraine. Mr. Rutte has been speaking to my colleague Lewis Vaughan-Jones.
I think it was very unfortunate, and I have been twice on the phone now with President Zelensky, and I told him this. We need to stick together. The United States, Ukraine and Europe, to bring Ukraine to a durable peace. So we clearly discussed this.
You said it was unfortunate. What did Zelensky say about it?
Well, of course, I'm not at liberty to disclose what we discussed. But what I clearly told him is that we really have to respect what President Trump has done so far for Ukraine. He was the one in 2019 who provided the javelins. These are lethal weapons. And without the javelins in 2022, when the full-scale attack started, Ukraine would have been nowhere. Of course, there was the training, particularly done by the UK and others, but it was primarily the javelins which make the table for Ukrainians to fight back. And without, they would not have stand a chance. So I told him we really have to give Trump credit for what he did then, what America did since then, and also what America is still doing.
Okay, I want to put to you some of the words from Donald Trump that directly impact you, your job, and your ability to do your job. When President Zelensky was talking about defending his country, and Donald Trump says there's gambling with World War III, is Donald Trump right?
Listen, I've spoken for half an hour on Thursday with Donald Trump on the phone, with President Trump. We are friends. We have worked for years together. I know he's committed to bring Ukraine to a durable peace. He is committed to NATO. Of course, he expects the European NATO partners and Canada to spend more and to ramp up defense production. And he is right there. So he is exactly on the spot when it comes to Ukraine, when it comes to NATO, and we really need to work together on all of this.
But is he right in when he tells Zelensky that Zelensky is gambling with World War III?
Listen, let me please not react to every sentence yesterday uttered in the Oval Office. But more generally, of course, it is important for Ukraine to get to a durable peace, as President Trump had said in the past, and also committed to yesterday. It should not be a sort of rerun of what we saw with the Minsk Accords in 2014. It should not be a Minsk III. It has to be a durable, lasting peace. And that is crucial to prevent war in the future. So there I am with President Trump, that it is important that Ukraine prevails here, that the outcome is enduring and will not be challenged by the Russians again.
Okay, you said where you are with Donald Trump. Are you with Donald Trump when he says to Zelensky, you're either going to make a deal or we're out? Are you with Donald Trump there? Listen,
I want to focus now on the bigger picture here, and the bigger picture is that we have to move beyond what happened last night. What I told to President Zelensky is that I said, I think you have to find a way, dear Volodymyr, to restore your relationship with Donald Trump and the American administration. That is important, going forward. The US, I know, is very much involved in this. It was Donald Trump who made the opening to the Russians, who basically broke the deadlock when it came to peace negotiations. So they have now started. It's the Europeans now, like tomorrow in London, under Keir Starmer's leadership. The Europeans coming together to really hammer out what the Europeans can do to support a future peace deal, which is not yet there, so step by step. But it is important that you start planning for this. And his visit, Keir Starmer's visit on Thursday, I think was very successful, because clearly there was a common understanding that we have to work on all of this together.
Can you see a future where the US does stop its military support for Ukraine?
I'm absolutely convinced that the US wants to bring Ukraine to this durable peace. It was what all the administration senior people have told in the past, my discussions with President Trump, but obviously what they need to get there is to make sure that we all work together on this. And it is important that President Zelensky finds a way to restore his relationship with the American president and with the senior American leadership team.
Just on the idea of the US withdrawing its military support for Ukraine, are NATO countries in a position to fill in that gap?
You know, let's move beyond this question, because it is crucial that we stay all in this together. The US, Ukraine, Europe, that we bring Ukraine to a peace. This is exactly what President Trump is fighting for, what we all are fighting for. We have to make sure that when a deal is struck, that the deal is lasting. It was.
But you can't just move. I'm sorry to interrupt. You can't just move beyond it when it was Donald Trump himself who said either there's a deal or the US is out. You can't move beyond that.
Again, I'm not going to comment on every sentence which was uttered yesterday in the Oval Office. As I said, it was an unfortunate meeting. I think Zelensky should find a way to restore his relationship with President Trump. That is important going forward. But I know as a fact that the American administration is extremely invested in making sure that Ukraine gets to this durable peace. And we have to work on this together. And the Europeans will have to play a role here.
And on to the summit tomorrow then that you mentioned earlier in London. Clearly topics of conversation, agendas, running orders will have been ripped up and started again now, given what happened in the US. What would be a concrete success story from this summit for you?
What I expect coming out of tomorrow is many countries tomorrow saying that if a peace deal is struck, and again, it is not yet there. When I discussed it with President Trump and with others in the American administration, they rightly said we first have to get to a peace deal before we can keep the peace, which is absolutely clear. But when a peace deal is struck, it is important, and I think that will come out of tomorrow, that many European countries are willing to help to make sure that the security guarantees are in place in Ukraine, to make sure that that peace deal is lasting and will not be challenged by the Russians again in the future. Again, like happened in 2014 after Crimea and the Minsk Accords, which were immediately challenged because there were no security guarantees in place.
Okay, and lastly, Secretary General, the EU Foreign Policy Chief saying the free world needs a new leader. Does it?
No, you know, the situation is very simple. The US is over 50% of NATO. In all my discussions with the Americans, they are extremely invested in NATO, including in Article 5. And the US being the biggest country, therefore, is the leader within the NATO alliance. Of course, with all the other leaders of all the other 31 allies. But the US is so big, is so important, there's so much political and, let's say, power in terms of the defense capabilities and the projection collectively we can make on the world stage. NATO acting together, basically twice the size of the US economy, is also in the interest not only of Europe but also of the US. So we will stay together, we will work together, and here in Europe we will have to spend more and ramp up the production.
That's Mark Rutte, who is NATO's Secretary General, speaking to Lewis a little earlier. A line on that subject about the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. It has been announced by his Prime Minister's office that Justin Trudeau will be attending the meeting that's happening here in London, the European leaders meeting about Ukraine, the Ukraine summit. So that is the news, that it's not just European leaders who will be at that summit, but also Canada's Prime Minister, outgoing Prime Minister, because his party, the Liberals, will choose a new leader on the 9th of March. Just to let you know, you can follow all the latest on those talks between President Zelensky and Prime Minister Starmer, and what is expected to come tomorrow with the meetings. First of all,